I never expected the happiest moment of my life to be interrupted by a phone call. I was standing on the deck of my brand new beach house. Champagne in hand, letting the ocean breeze carry away 30 years of corporate stress. The sky was glowing in soft pastels, and for the first time in decades, I felt peace. Real, deep peace. And then, my phone rang. It was my son, Adam, and in just a few sentences, he reminded me that peace, for some people, is just a temporary illusion. Looking back, that call wasn't just rude timing, it was the start of something much darker. Something that would test everything I thought I knew about family, love, and boundaries. I'd spent my entire adult life building a business, raising a child, and dreaming of this one moment. And within 24 hours, I'd be watching strangers walk barefoot across my marble floors like they owned the place. What do you do when your own child stops seeing you as a person and starts seeing you as a resource? If you've ever questioned where to draw the line between love and self-respect, you'll want to hear this. Because what happened next changed everything. After 30 years running my own small company, endless board meetings, late-night flights, and missed holidays, I finally let myself dream. Retirement wasn't just a phase I stumbled into. It was something I fought for, planned for, earned. I sold my consulting firm at 65. Not a flashy exit, but solid. I walked away with just over $2 million, and the freedom to do something I'd put off my whole life breathe. And that's when I found it. This little beachfront cottage on the Carolina coast. Nothing extravagant. Just enough space for me, my books, and the sound of the waves outside my window. I remember the first time I stepped inside. Hardwood floors, soft white walls, and a back deck that opened right onto the sand. It felt like exhaling after decades of holding my breath. I used to wake up at 5:30 every morning, just to sit outside with coffee and listen to the ocean. I wasn't rushing anywhere. No emails, no calls, just me, the gulls, and the tide. And for a while, that was enough. I had plans, two small ones. A garden out front, joining the local library committee, maybe even learning how to paint, things that sounded silly to the version of me who once wore heels and carried 2 phones. But the quiet, the stillness, it started to heal something in me. I didn't even know how much I needed it until I had it. I thought this was the beginning of the chapter I'd waited for all my life. The one where I get to finally live on my terms. In my space. Funny how peace can feel so permanent right until it's not. I didn't see the storm coming. There were no warning signs. No arguments. No tension. Just that one phone call from my son, Adam. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't say congratulations. He launched straight into logistics. As if my new home was just a space on a board game, ready to be moved into and rearranged. I remember standing there with my coffee, the sun rising over the water, and realizing something I never expected to feel about my own child. Entitlement. That's what it was. And it hit me harder than I cared to admit. That morning, the sky was painted in soft gold, and the house still smelled like new cedar and salt air. I'd just unpacked my last box when my phone buzzed. It was Adam, my only son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father left, the one I thought I could always count on. He didn't start with a hello or a how are you. His tone was brisk, businesslike, the same voice he used when talking to his contractors. He told me he and his wife, Megan, were planning a family vacation. 11 people total, her parents, siblings, cousins. They had already bought their flights. And since the house was so big, they'd be staying there for 2 weeks. He spoke as if I wasn't the owner, as if I were a guest. He even mentioned that I'd need to move into one of the upstairs guest rooms, so Megan's mother could use the master suite. Said it was better for her knees. At first, I thought it was a joke. I even laughed. But then I heard it in his voice, the expectation. That quiet, cutting certainty that I would agree. Because I always had. For years. I'd been the safety net. The one who paid off his credit cards after his business experiment failed. The one who helped with the down payment on his house. The one who loaned him money when Megan wanted a new car. I did it all without complaint. Thinking that's what mothers do. But this was different. This wasn't asking for help. This was taking. He told me I shouldn't be selfish. That it was just a few weeks. That I had this beautiful home all to myself and should share it with family. He even implied I might be lonely and that having people around would be good for me. And then came the part that still echoes in my mind. He said something about a nearby retirement community. How they had great amenities. How maybe it would be simpler for me someday. I remember standing there, staring out at the ocean. My hand gripping the phone so tightly it hurt. It wasn't just what he said. It was how easily he said it. Like the idea of pushing me aside was normal. Reasonable. That call didn't end with a fight. It ended with silence. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just said I understood. Because at that moment, I finally did. I understood that somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being his mother and started being his convenience. And when that realization hits you, when the person you love most treats you like an obstacle, it changes something deep inside. I set the phone down, listened to the waves for a long time, and promised myself one thing: if they were going to walk into my home and treat it like theirs, I would let them. But not in the way they expected. They showed up on a Saturday morning just after 9. I remember the exact time because I had just finished watering the small herb planters I'd set out by the kitchen window. It was quiet, peaceful, and then, in less than 10 minutes, it wasn't. SUVs rolled in like a caravan. Doors slammed. Luggage tumbled out onto my gravel drive. Megan's voice echoed across the yard before I even reached the front door. They were already making themselves at home. No one knocked. No one asked if now was a good time. They just walked in boxes. Bags. Coolers. Beach gear taking up space like it had always belonged to them. Megan's mother made a beeline for the master suite. And Adam handed me my own suitcase. Already packed. Already moved into the guest room. He didn't ask if I was okay with it. He didn't even pause it. I stood there watching it unfold, like I wasn't part of the story. Like I was the help in a house I built with my own hands. Over the next few days, I disappeared. Not physically but emotionally. My kitchen became a communal snack bar. My books were pushed aside to make room for board games I didn't recognize. The sound of waves was drowned out by Bluetooth speakers blaring beach playlists and kids screaming in the hallway. And the worst part, no one seemed to notice I was there. I'd walk into a room, and conversations wouldn't even pause. Megan's brother used my reading chair like a towel rack. Her cousin brought in a dog unannounced who chewed through one of my throw pillows. They rearranged my furniture, took down my family photos and replaced them with summer-themed art from some discount store. I found my wedding picture tucked behind the laundry room door. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, staring at it, wondering how long it would take before I disappeared completely. It wasn't just inconvenient. It was humiliating. And for a while, I let myself believe that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Too old-fashioned. But then I overheard Megan talking to her sister in the kitchen. She said something about how this setup works. And that Mom's got a big enough place we could make this an annual thing. She was already planning for next year. That's when I felt it. That cold, sinking realization that this wasn't just a visit. They were testing boundaries. Seeing how far they could stretch the idea of family hospitality before I broke. And the truth was, I had already started to break. Quietly. Silently. Every time I stepped over a pair of flip-flops or opened my fridge to find my food gone. Every time I looked around and saw less of myself in my own home. But what they didn't realize is that I wasn't broken. I was calculating. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't demand anything. That's not how you survive in a house full of people who already decided you don't matter. Instead, I smiled. I handed out towels. I poured lemonade. And I listened. Because sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone in my little guest room, the one that used to be my studio, and pulled out my laptop. I opened a blank document and started listing every account. Every detail about the house. The deed. The taxes. The utilities, every name on every piece of paper. Luckily, I'd always been thorough. When I bought the beach house, I put it under a trust, not just in my name, but in a legal structure I controlled entirely. Adam never asked about it, and I never volunteered the information. At the time, I just thought it was the smart thing to do. Now, I realized it was my safety net. The next morning, I called my attorney, Sharon. We'd known each other since I drafted my first will at 42. I told her everything what Adam said. How they moved in. How they treated me. Her response was calm but firm. She said I had every right to act. And more importantly, she'd help me make sure it stuck. By the end of that day, I had moved the property into a new LLC, changed the locks on the homeowner portal, and filed a do not renew on the utilities that were in my name. Quiet steps. Nothing flashy. Nothing confrontational. They were too busy planning group outings and sunbathing on my patio to notice the shift. What they didn't see was me. Watching. Documenting. Making notes. Collecting receipts. And in the evenings, while they toasted marshmallows by the fire pit I paid for, I was making calls. To a catering company. A luxury rental service. A team of housekeepers. If they were going to treat my home like a resort, I was about to give them the full experience with a check to match. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted to remind my son that this house, this peace, this life, I built it. And if they weren't going to respect that, I would show them just how much control I still had. I set the table myself. Not out of necessity but out of symbolism. Every fork. Every wine glass. Every perfectly folded linen napkin was a quiet declaration. I still had control. Even if they didn't see it yet. The evening was warm. The kind of golden dusk you only get near the ocean. Megan and her family were busy prepping their usual chaos music. Drinks. Selfies by the fire pit. Adam had invited more guests. Friends from his firm. Strangers. Really? People I'd never met walking through my front door like it was some kind of rental. What they didn't know was that this dinner wasn't just a gathering. It was a show. And I was no longer the extra. I was the one writing the final act. At 6:15, the catering team arrived, 3 staff dressed in crisp black and white, carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres and bottles of wine older than Adam's marriage. Megan's eyes lit up like she'd won a prize. She asked who ordered it. I smiled and told her the truth, it was a celebration. For family, for the end of summer, for everything we'd built together. They didn't question it. Why would they? They thought I was still the doting, docile mother who never said no. As dinner was served, lobster tail, filet mignon, roasted vegetables drizzled with truffle oil, everyone toasted, laughed, bragged about their vacation plans. Not a single word of thanks. Not a single glance of appreciation. Until dessert came. That's when I stood up. Quietly. No clinking of glass. No speech. Just a calm voice and steady breath. I thanked them all for coming. I said how lovely it had been, having them here watching the house come alive. Seeing the laughter. The joy. Then I paused. Looked straight at Adam. And I told them the dinner was a gift. A farewell celebration. Because starting tomorrow morning, they'd need to find a hotel. I explained gently that I'd moved the house into an LLC, that I'd hired a management company, that I had renters scheduled by the weekend, that it was time I enjoyed my home the way I intended, with peace, privacy, and purpose. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just handed Adam the invoice, every dish, every drink, every service, over $5,000, and told him I'd like it covered by noon tomorrow. Before checkout, you could hear the fork hit the plate. He looked stunned. Megan looked furious. Her mother started to protest. But I was already walking away toward the porch, where the ocean waited, unbothered by their disbelief. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the house. It was about finally being seen. And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the water, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Free. The next morning, the house was quieter than it had been in weeks. No blaring music. No chaos in the kitchen. Just the sound of drawers opening and bags being packed in a rush. Adam didn't speak to me. Megan gave me a look. I'll never forget, somewhere between betrayal and disbelief. Like she couldn't understand how I had slipped out of the role they'd written for me. Her mother refused to make eye contact altogether. By noon, they were gone. And just like that, the air cleared. The house felt bigger again. Lighter. Mine. That same afternoon, I finalized the paperwork. The beach house was no longer just a home, it was now part of a business entity I controlled completely. And though I didn't sell it outright, I placed it under a legal trust that protected it from family claims or future manipulation. I even installed a security system and hired a local property manager. Boundaries. Real ones. The truth was, Adam never asked if he could move in. He assumed. And assumptions have consequences. He tried to reach out a few days later. Said we needed to talk like family. But I didn't respond right away. I needed space. Not just from them, but from the pattern. The pattern of always fixing. Forgiving. Folding. And as I sat on the back deck that evening, sipping tea and watching the waves roll in, I felt something deeper than satisfaction. I felt protected. I knew I'd broken a cycle. Quietly. Cleanly. Not with vengeance, but with vision. I thought the storm had passed. That once they left, the silence would bring peace. But with people like Adam, peace isn't the end. It's a challenge. About a week after they packed up and left, I got a letter. Certified. From a law firm I didn't recognize. Inside was a notice. Adam had filed a petition to gain limited conservatorship over my estate. Claimed I was showing signs of decline. That I'd been making irrational decisions that affected family property. He listed my age. The LLC. The dinner bill. It felt like being slapped across the face by someone you raised. And that wasn't all. He called Child Protective Services, reporting that I had been unstable around my grandson. He reached out to the property manager pretending to be me, asking to take over responsibilities. He even tried accessing my financial records through my old accountant. It was the full assault: legal, emotional, reputational. But what he didn't know, what he never bothered to ask, is that I'd already built my defense. I had a paper trail for everything. Every expense. Every ownership document. Every text and voicemail. Backed up and time-stamped. Sharon, my attorney, had filed a preemptive legal response days earlier. She'd seen cases like this before. She told me to stay calm. And so I did. I didn't confront him. I didn't play into the drama. I handled it like a business. I let the attorneys speak. The case was thrown out within a week. His claims didn't hold. Then I made a choice that hurt more than anything else I've ever had to do. I sat down at my desk. Wrote him a letter. Not angry. Not bitter. Just clear. I told him that until he saw me as a person, not a stepping stone or an ATM, there would be no relationship. That boundaries weren't punishments, they were protections. And that no matter how much history we shared, love without respect wasn't love at all. I haven't heard from him since. Sometimes I wonder if he even read it. But then I remember this was never about changing him. It was about saving myself. I spent so many years trying to be the kind of mother who fixed everything, who made sacrifices, who gave without asking for much in return. But now I'm the kind of woman who knows when enough is enough. I walk my beach every morning. I host book clubs. Not invasions. My life is smaller, quieter, but truer. And if anyone tries to take that from me again, they'll learn what Adam did. That I may be gentle, but I am not weak. It's quiet now. Not the kind of silence that comes from loneliness, but the kind that feels earned. Like after a storm finally passes and the sun finds its way back through the clouds. Most mornings, I wake up around 6. I brew a strong cup of coffee, open the sliding doors, and let the ocean breeze fill the house. Sometimes I read, sometimes I just sit and listen. And that's enough. This house, my house, is no longer just walls and windows. It's a boundary, a reminder, a promise I made to myself to never shrink for the comfort of others again. Especially not for those who confuse love with ownership. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: you can love someone deeply and still say no. You can be a parent and still protect yourself. And most importantly, you can choose peace without needing permission. I may have lost a version of my son, but I gained a version of myself I didn't know I needed. And if my story speaks to you, if you've ever felt taken for granted or silenced in your own life, please know you're not alone. Your voice matters. Your space matters. And your peace, it's worth protecting. If this touched something in you, I'd love to hear your story. Leave a comment. Share this with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe.